Picture yourself as an athlete where you've done something so bad that one of your competitors is seeking you, and you have no idea what might happen. This driver was so unbelievably angry that he sprinted over 100 yards to confront the driver that wrecked him. And this guy tried tackling another driver because he got wrecked for the win. And this person got so salty that he left his car's bumper at the holler of the guy who wrecked him. So here are the craziest times in NASCAR where drivers were looking for trouble.
We all have learned the hard way. We've all had to come back around on us, and it'll be no different.
Who exactly was Hamlin talking about here? If you guessed it was Ross Chastain's fault, you would be 100% right. The whole story starts out with Chastain sending Hamlin into the wall on lap 69.
Nice.
And once Hamlin's car was repaired, he would rejoin the track and constantly play mind games with him lap after lap. The first time, Hamlin looked like he wanted to wreck Chastain, but he didn't, and the second time he slowed him down noticeably. It's important to note that Hamlin never actually wrecked Chastain back. And by stage 2, Chastain got involved in another wreck where Chase Elliott spun off of his bumper, and the consensus was that Chastain was again to blame, and the very second that the race resumed, Chase Elliott bumped Chastain back in the first corner, and then Hamlin jumps into the frame and gives Chastain a sideswipe. Half of a lap later, they were left in the dust where more mind games would happen for many laps in a row. And I'm sure Chastain felt like the whole field was out to get him, so he ended up feeling very, very sorry.
I owe half the field an apology, and words aren't going to fix it, so I'll have to pay for it on the track, and it's terrible.
There was even a time where Clint Bowyer went on a manhunt for Jeff Gordon because he was wrecked out of the race when he had a chance to become the 2012 Cup Series champion. But what if I told you that Jeff Gordon was also on a manhunt for Clint Bowyer because he was wrecked a few times over the course of a full year? This crash at Martinsville and this contact earlier in the Phoenix race were the main reasons why Gordon hunted Bowyer down and did this to take him out of championship contention. Since Gordon looked for trouble and got his revenge, Bowyer figured he would too. So after parking his destroyed car at his pit stall, Bowyer glanced up at the video boards to find out where Gordon was and sprinted extremely far to at the very least yell at Gordon. He did all of this running only to be stopped by the pit crew, but we can only imagine what would have happened if that wasn't the case. The moment Jeff Gordon decided to do this was the most damaging thing he had ever done to his reputation. But after sitting on it for a whole week, he expressed regret in pretty much every single interview.
I felt terrible about how I went about it, and I still regret the way I went about it, but I can't take it back.
In a qualifying session at Phoenix in 2019, Michael McDowell slowed Daniel Suarez down on his hot lap, so Suarez showed his frustration by trying to wreck him on the cooldown lap. He then walked over to McDowell and the two of them started fighting. And I actually think Suarez had one of the best get off of me moments in sports history.
Come on, man! That's too easy!
A crew member pushed him onto the hood of the car, and it even started rolling a little. And the greatest part is that you can even see McDowell pulling on his foot for whatever reason. But something I never expected is that at the end of all of this, they made up and talked things over to ensure it wouldn't carry on to the race on Sunday. And in pre-race ceremonies, they rode together in the back of the same truck, which makes this moment one of the good endings in this video. These two drivers tangled again 2 years later at Sonoma Raceway. Suarez was first run off the track, but he came back to spin McDowell in turn 11 on the same lap. And honestly, I'm kind of wondering if there's ever going to be a round 3 between these drivers. Michael McDowell actually has one more appearance in this video, and it's when he wrecked Bubba Wallace in the 2020 All-Star Showdown. It's important to note that McDowell was actually getting bumped by a few drivers before he did this, and so when Wallace moved him up the track, McDowell decided to hook a left and turn the 43 into the wall. And of course, Bubba was reasonably upset in his interview, where he called McDowell this.
What a joke he is.
And so he walked to the 34 car's hauler and hand-delivered them a special present, which was the destroyed front bumper of his car. But somehow there's once again a good ending. McDowell's crew loaded it into their hauler and took it with them, which they would decide to list on eBay to donate all the proceeds to Motor Racing Outreach. A company named Car Parts won the final bid for $20,034, and the company also decided to give that same amount of money to Victory Junction. Kevin Harvick started chasing Kyle Busch around pit road on the cooldown lap to get some revenge. And this started because Harvick doored Kyle on the back straightaway and also bumped him in turn 3. And after getting squeezed off turn 4, Busch chased Harvick halfway down the track and spun him out. It seemed decently justified, but of course the two drivers had a cat and mouse game on the cooldown lap until Harvick finally parked it in front of Busch and jumped out. But this didn't happen according to Harvick's plans because Kyle Busch started driving off, but not before Harvick got a strike in. And eventually his car hit the inside wall head on, causing DW to say this.
That car just took off.
Each driver was smiling in their interviews, and when Harvick was asked if the feud was over, this is what he responded with.
Is it settled between the two of you?
You saw the end.
The next week at Dover, Harvick appeared on this trackside segment where he had some quotes that the fans loved.
I just wish I could have punched him in the nose instead of the helmet.
Harv, settle down, son. Settle down.
Well, he's not going to get in a punching contest because he's scared of that. So it's
So was everything over? I would imply the answer was no, because a month later at Pocono, Harvick wanted to get inside Busch's head and started racing in a very unusual manner when the 18 car was around him. No one ever wants to be wrecked for the win, and that's exactly why after John Hunter Nemechek pinned Cole Custer against the wall to win this race, Custer exited his car and straight up tackled Nemechek as he was celebrating. This is obviously not great racing etiquette, so Custer really had every reason to be upset. Something I can vaguely remember about the day that this happened is when Larry McReynolds posted a tweet to his Twitter account that said, "There might be a reason why John Hunter Nemechek has no sponsor." In Nemechek's interview, he specifically said,
We didn't wreck him for the win.
which is obviously one of the worst attempts ever at hiding a lie. And the very next thing that comes out of his mouth is,
If I would have been in the same spot, he would have done the same thing to me to get a win.
and that completely contradicts the claim that Nemechek didn't wreck Custer intentionally. In 2015, Regan Smith had revenge to seek because he was spun out by Ty Dillon late in this race at Watkins Glen. Both drivers got into a wrestling match over it, and Regan Smith held a death grip on Dillon's fireproof shirt. Ty Dillon admitted all faults in the post-race interviews. He said that he wheel hopped twice and couldn't believe his mistakes. But in Regan's interview, he was a little bit more heated.
I might have lost the championship today, but he sure hell did too. There's zero chance that 3-car wins this championship, and I'm gonna make sure of it.
And for everyone wondering, Ty Dillon did not win the championship, though he did finish third in the standings, missing out by only 18 points. It completely took me by surprise that this happened almost 8 years ago now, because it seems a lot more recent than that. Remember earlier in the video when Kevin Harvick said this?
well, he's not going to get in a punching contest because he's scared of that. So,
well, Kyle Busch disproved that claim in 2017 when Joey Logano spun him out on the final lap at Las Vegas. Busch and Logano have never really raced very well against each other, and since Busch felt robbed out of a top 5 finish, he casually walked up to Logano after the race and just punched him without anyone ever expecting it.
Let's play punchies to see who gets to be player 1.
Fine!
When Kyle was shown on the video boards at the track with some blood on his forehead, you could kind of hear the fans beginning to cheer. And after the fight, Busch said in his interview that
that's how Joey races, so he's gonna get it.
And that's insinuating that he'd be looking for more trouble at an unsuspecting point in the future. And the best part here is this soundbite from Joey Logano's interview.
Any blows landed between the two of you?
None to me.
Why the you lying?
He says he never got hit, but I think he had a red mark on his face afterwards. So
he really tried to play it off like there weren't cameras that had video evidence. Alex Bowman spun Bubba Wallace during this cup race at the Charlotte Road Course because the 43 was reportedly sticking his finger out the window for 3 to 4 laps straight. And when the race was over, Wallace went on a search to find and confront the driver of the number 88, only to find him sitting outside of his car completely exhausted. And clearly the issue couldn't be resolved the way Bubba was hoping for, so he just insisted on pouring some water on top of Bowman instead. To be honest, I feel like this was more helpful than anything, but I'm sure it would have gone a little differently if Bowman was feeling better. One of the most forgotten recent NASCAR rivalries was between Kyle Busch and William Byron. It starts with this contact where Busch felt like he got pinched off the exit of turn 1, and so laps later he would come back to send Byron way too fast into the bus stop, causing a completely unplanned trip through the grass. And under the next caution, the camera cuts to William Byron with heavy damage on the nose of his car. And at the time, no one's exactly sure what caused it, but it can start to be pieced together when the camera reveals Kyle is the car directly in front of him. Byron was just planning to bump Kyle Busch. but it seems like Busch would have had to brake check the 24 for him to receive damage to that extent. This had Chad Knaus reasonably upset, and he called for Byron to retaliate. However, that never really happened. What's a crazy revenge moment in NASCAR that no one seems to remember? Comment them below because I'll be interacting and I'll even pin the best one. So yeah, I try to make this video feel a little bit more like my ones from 2021-ish, so subscribe to get notified when I post more. You'll love this one showing the weirdest areas at NASCAR tracks.